Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear learners. I hope that you are fine and ready to learn the basics of English grammar. Before we move on, I want you to subscribe my channel and click the bell icon so that you may receive the regular updates about my videos. Here is our today's topic. We shall talk about the kinds of sentences based on their structure. There is another video on my YouTube channel which is about the kinds of sentences based on their function and purpose. I shall be attaching a link to that video in the description box. You must go and watch that also. Okay, let me now tell you about the kinds of sentences based on their structure. There are four kinds. The first kind is known as the simple sentence. Here is the second kind, which is known as the compound sentence. The third kind is known as the complex sentence. And the fourth kind is known as the compound complex sentence. We shall be talking about these four kinds in today's video. Let's move on and talk about the first kind, which is the simple sentence. A simple sentence expresses a single complete thought. It has one finite verb. The verb which shows tense is known as the finite verb. And a simple sentence has only one subject and one predicate. For example, Quaid-e-Azam, the first Governor General of Pakistan, died in 1948. This is a simple sentence and it is conveying complete thought and it has one finite verb which is died. We admire him. This is also a simple sentence. Our army fought the enemy courageously. This is also a simple sentence which has one finite verb which is fought and it has a subject which is our army. Let's now move on and talk about the second kind of sentence based on the structure which is known as the compound sentence. A compound sentence is made up of two or more independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. I hope that you know about the concept of clauses in English grammar. If you still have any confusions about the clauses, you must go and watch another video which is specially made on the topic of the clauses. I shall attach the link to that video in the description box also. So coming back to the topic, I was telling you about the compound sentences. They are made up of two or more independent clauses and they are linked together or joined by the kinds of conjunctions which are known as the coordinating conjunction. And following are the coordinating conjunctions: and, but, yet, or, nor, for, still, and so. The independent clauses in the compound sentences are equal in rank. The compound sentence can convey complete meaning with the help of the clauses which it has. For example, you must work hard or you will fail. You can see that there are two clauses in this sentence. The first clause is you must work hard and the second clause is you will fail. And these two clauses are joined by conjunction which is or, and this is known as the coordinating conjunction. The first clause has a subject which is you and it has a modal verb which is must. Similarly, the second clause has a subject which is you, and it also has a verb which is fail. It is a finite verb. And these two clauses are independent. Let's talk about the second example, which is it is a difficult problem, but I can solve it. You can see that both the clauses have been underlined and they are independent clauses and they are joined by coordinating conjunction but. Let's talk about the complex sentences now. A complex sentence contains one independent clause, which is known as the principal clause, and at least one dependent clause, which is called subordinate clause. Note that the complex sentence is different from the compound sentence. A compound sentence has the clauses which are independent, but a complex sentence should have at least one independent and one dependent clause. And the independent clause in the complex sentence is known as the principal clause, while the dependent clause is called subordinate clause. The dependent clause is introduced with a subordinate conjunction or relative pronouns. And following are the relative pronouns: when, so that, if, that, who, whose, whom, which, or whoever. So note the point that the dependent clause in the complex sentence is introduced within the sentence with subordinating conjunctions. For example, she had promised me that she will help me in my assignments. Now, the first clause, she had promised me, is the principal clause because it can stand on its own and it is the independent clause. But the second clause, that she will help me in my assignments, is the dependent clause. It is the subordinate clause actually. And that here is the subordinating conjunction. So note that this second point said that the subordinating conjunction is introduced with, the subordinating clause is introduced with subordinating conjunction. So here that is the subordinating conjunction and this clause is the subordinate clause. See the second statement, which is we came inside when it started raining. The first clause, we came inside, is the principal clause. It can stand independently, while the second clause is subordinate clause. It cannot stand independently. It is the dependent clause. And when here is the subordinating conjunction. See the third sentence. She was absent from the school because she had caught a cold. In this sentence, the first clause, she was absent from the school, is independent clause. It is the principal clause. While the second clause, which has been bolded and underlined, is the subordinate clause. And here, because is the subordinating conjunction, and this clause cannot stand alone on its own, while the first clause can stand on its own. Note that a complex sentence should have at least one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Let's move on and talk about the compound complex sentences. A compound complex sentence is built up with at least two independent clauses and one or more than one dependent clause. Coordinating as well as subordinating conjunctions may be used in compound complex sentences. Simply, we can say that the compound complex sentence should have at least two independent or principal clauses and one or more than one dependent or subordinate clauses. For example, though he prefers Hollywood films, he went to see an Urdu film with his friends and he enjoyed it a lot. You can see that the first clause has been bolded and underlined, and this is the dependent clause. It is the subordinate clause. While he went to see an Urdu film with his friends is the independent clause. Similarly, and he enjoyed it is also a independent clause. So this sentence has one dependent and two independent clauses. The first clause is dependent while the other two clauses are independent clauses. Here I have mentioned that this first clause is the subordinate or dependent clause. See the second sentence. Unless you eat healthy food, you will not be healthy nor will you be happy. In this sentence, the first clause is the subordinate clause and it has been bolded and underlined, while the second and the third clauses are independent clauses. You will not be healthy is an independent clause. Similarly, you will be happy is also independent clause. So you can notice that these two sentences have three clauses, and out of them, each has one subordinate clause and two principal clauses. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Allah Hafiz.